everybody. So we are so excited. We are here to give our best and worst of the year so far. I'm Rachel, and David is here.
Hi, I'm here again.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah. So how would you say that you feel about this year so far in general, as movies go? Do you think it's been a good year, bad year?
Yeah, what's interesting about this year for me is that I've seen a lot more movies than I'd seen any other year at this point. I've seen, I think, 82 movies, and I'm surprised that there's not more movies that I hate.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. There haven't been that many movies that I've been like miserable in.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like last year was a better year for blockbusters. There's been a lot of indies that I love, but last year, I don't know, I just loved Wonder Woman so much that I think maybe that's sort of skewing it. But I don't know, it just seemed like it was a better year for blockbusters than this year.
That's fair. I have liked most of the blockbusters I've seen this year. Like, if I give you my top 10 list, it's going to be a lot of blockbusters.
Oh yeah.
But
I haven't hated, except for Pacific Rim Uprising. That was the only one that really inspired my wrath. But the rest have been fine. 2016 was worse. You had things like Alice Through the Looking Glass and the X-Men Apocalypse, which I hated.
Right.
You had about maybe Superman, which was disappointing. This year is better than that year, but I don't know, it's an interesting year. But there've been a lot of really good indies and some other good films. Incredibles 2 I thought was great. So a lot of fun stuff. So, all right, well, we're just going to do my friend Sean Chandler on his channel. He did a biggest surprise, biggest disappointment, best comedy, top 3, bottom 3. And I thought that would be fun for us to give our picks for these same categories that he did. And we're going to add a couple too that he didn't do.
Yep.
So, all right. So what has been your biggest surprise?
My biggest surprise, and I know you didn't like it, or at least not as much as me, was Peter Rabbit. The trailers kind of made me groan. I had to convince my roommate to go see it with me. And we were both like, let's just get this over with. And we laughed so much consistently throughout the movie. Like, even when I think about some of the funny lines, like, it still makes me laugh. Like, it was so much better than I expected. So, yeah, definitely my biggest surprise.
Cool. I kind of had that experience this last weekend. I saw Teen Titans Go to the movies, and I laughed a ton, and I thought it was really funny. And so that is always a pleasant thing when you are expecting something to not be great, and then you go in and you end up laughing a lot.
Yeah, and that has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. So it was surprisingly funny, in my opinion. I definitely recommend. I think, especially if you see all the superhero movies, I think you'll think it's funny. So anyway, but yeah, so my biggest surprise is Sergeant Stubby, The Great American Hero. This movie was so sweet. It was so lovingly animated. I just was so impressed for their first animated film coming out of a small studio in Atlanta that they could do this. I thought it managed that balance between being not glorifying war, but also like showing just enough for kids to learn, of what it is. It wasn't like a rah-rah Americans are better than everybody else kind of movie. It had characters from, French characters, German characters that were admirable. It just did so many things right. Like, it would have been so easy to have made Stubby talk, and that would have ruined the whole movie. There were so many things it did that I thought were so commendable. The music was great. Patrick Doyle did the music, and it was good. And I was so impressed by it, and it was just a really nice, pleasant surprise. Sweet story, and one that I think will be used in like curriculums and stuff like that. I can see kids watching it at school and things like that.
Oh, wow.
It was really good. Yeah.
Yep. I still haven't seen it. So.
When it comes on DVD, I think in the next couple of weeks it'll be on DVD. Okay. So you should check it out. So, cool. Yeah. So, okay. What was your biggest disappointment?
Okay. This was pretty easy for me because most of the movies either matched my expectations or they might have just slightly been above or below. But this movie, I was giving it the benefit of any doubt, but it just was not good. It's A Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it I think people talk about certain stories that are unfilmable. I think this is probably one of those things. It just whatever works in the book did not come through in this movie. It just didn't make sense. The acting was pretty bad from some of the people. Visually, I liked it, but that's all it had going for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with you. That would have been my pick as well. I guess if I'm looking for one that I think had way more potential than it delivered on, even though it's not my favorite genre, I would say another disappointment was Winchester. I think they had way more potential to do something interesting and something scary and something, they had Helen Mirren, who's a good actress. They could have used her more. They could have had a better story. It was just so dumb and not scary at all. So I think I'd say I agree with you. Wrinkle in Time is definitely the most disappointing. I was so let down by it. And it took out all the spirituality and personal growth of the character and was just like people telling her she was great, but she hadn't really done anything that was great. She hadn't really done anything that was deserving of her being a warrior. And so like, and in the book, she internalizes that and realizes it herself, which is way more empowering than someone telling her. And her, like, I don't know, it was a huge disappointment. And Ava DuVernay had everything there. She had everything. She had the backing of Disney. She had a huge budget. She had great cast. There was just no reason that it wasn't good. Ava, you screwed it up.
Yeah, I just don't think it's the type of movie she should be directing. She did such a good job with Selma. I think she needed somebody to help her out more.
Yeah, I think so.
She was new to this. I don't.
Yeah.
But I agree about Winchester too. That's definitely one I'd considered mentioning as well.
Yeah. So, all right. So best comedy, for me, it's a clear winner. The best, outright comedy, because there's movies like Paddington 2 and Incredibles 2 that have comedic moments. But the one that is the outright comedy that I just loved is Game Night. It was so funny. And just the scene with Jason Bateman and that dog alone had me just laughing. And I saw this the same day I saw Annihilation, which I did not like. And so this was just like, yay! And I don't know. I thought that Kyle Chandler was hilarious in it. I thought that they were all funny, all the banter back and forth. I thought that the guy playing the cop was hilarious, and it's just a really funny movie. Isle of Dogs was also, I thought, pretty funny.
Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't say Game Night, so we wouldn't be in agreement again. But yeah, if you're just judging like what's an outright comedy, it's got to be Game Night, and I don't think it's really close. Like, if I'm being objective and not just talking about what I personally enjoyed the most, I think The Death of Stalin is up there as well.
Oh yeah,
it's a very good film. But just Game Night's something that I know. It's one of those comedies I can go back to. I've watched it at home recently again. It's just really funny. It works on every level for me.
Yeah, it's still in my top 10 of the year. Yeah, it's really good. Agree with you. I mean, I'd put Teen Titans Go. It's in my top 20, but it's probably my second favorite comedy.
Okay.
Just as far as pure out. I also thought Book Club was funny, and I actually laughed quite a bit on that, but there you go. All right. So then we have our top 3 and our bottom 3. And so my top 3 are, my number 3 is Lean on Pete. I thought that Charlie Plummer was amazing. We'll talk about him later on, but I thought he was incredible in this. I thought it was such a moving depiction of America at the moment. It just, by the ending, I was just like sobbing, and it's a movie that has just stayed in my brain, and I just keep thinking about it and thinking about certain scenes. And there's a scene where he's going to dine and dash, and that whole scene was just like so compelling. And to me, like when the waitress is just like, just go, I don't know, just that whole scene was just so moving, I thought, and interesting, and like, what would I do if I was that waitress? So that's, scene. And I don't know, it was just a great movie, and devastating what happens. It's devastating, but it's really good. And then my number 2 for the year is Leave No Trace. I thought I loved This Is Sundance, and I just saw it again, and I loved it again. It's beautifully filmed. Deborah Granick, amazing director. Thomasin McKenzie gives an amazing performance as this girl. Her father has PTSD and is raising her off the grid. And at first they have this certain degree of normalcy, and then things happen that sort of disrupt their world. And I like the fact that this movie didn't paint him as a hero for his alternate lifestyle, which I hate when they do that. He's a very damaged and complex man. It's a slow burn, so it's not going to be everyone's taste, but I loved it. I thought it was so human and so real and so good. And then my number 1 favorite movie of the year is Paddington 2. I love Paddington 2. Paddington 2 is so sweet. It's so funny. It's so great, just in every way. It's so entertaining. I just think it's basically a perfect family film. It and its successor are just great. So it's my favorite. And I can't imagine getting sick of it. I could watch it over and over and over and over again. It's just so sweet and so lovely to me. So it's my number 1 of the year.
Those are good choices. Well, I haven't seen Leave No Trace, but I really like Paddington 2. That's in my top 10 still.
Yeah.
And Lean on Pete is really, really good. And I think the last time when we had talked about it, I had seen it, but you hadn't seen it yet. So I'm glad to hear that you liked it so much, because I sure was singing its praises back then. Yeah.
Top 3.
Okay, so my top 3, it's a little bit more mainstream than yours, but so third would be A Quiet Place, which I knew I was going to love. I thought it had potential to be my number 1 for the whole year. It just has all the elements of movies that I like. It's like I've told you that I like those creature features, and it's basically that.
Yeah.
Great direction by John Krasinski. So much heart to it, which you wouldn't have even necessarily thought there would be so much heart to it. Emily Blunt is great. Just there's nothing wrong with it, I think. The only thing wrong with it is that they're making a sequel, which will probably ruin it. But I'll be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I wish if they were going to do a sequel, I think they should make it in the same world, but a totally different family. Like, that would be interesting.
I agree. Yeah. I think that's what they should do for sure. Hopefully they will.
I really thought it was great too. It's still in my top 10 of the year, and I was so wound up that there was a guy drinking at the water fountain. I didn't see him, and he kind of like popped up a little bit, and I was like, whoo! And he's like, "What's wrong with you, lady? Like, calm down," because it was just like it was very effective in creating tone, and so good job. So what's your next choice?
Number 2. Are you ready for this one, Rachel? If we're talking about personally what I enjoyed watching,
right?
Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. I really liked it.
Okay.
It's just hard for them to go wrong with the Jurassic World movie for me. And I think you like this one better than the last one, correct?
I definitely liked it better than the last one.
Yeah. And it's a strong contender for my second favorite out of the whole franchise. I like that they went a different route with the story. They didn't go back to, they did go back to the island, but it wasn't just straightforward like we've seen so many times with these movies. I like the first half better than the second half, but really I enjoyed it as a whole so much. There were some really strong action sequences, specifically a scene with a baryonyx, which I'm sure that probably means nothing to you. Basically, when Claire and Franklin were in their little bunker and they got the door open and the lava's coming down and the dinosaurs coming after them.
Oh,
I was on the edge of my seat. I knew they would survive. Spoiler, based on the trailer.
Yeah,
but
they did show way too much of the trailers. The trailers were terrible in general, but they showed so many of the good parts of that movie.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, the scene with the gyrosphere, I really like that as well. I thought the ending, the last 15 minutes was pretty intense. So yeah. I loved it, and I watched it the Thursday it opened and went back and watched it the next day.
I did like it better than the first Jurassic World because I felt like the characters were much better developed and they weren't asking me to believe that people get tired of dinosaurs, which was just so stupid to me in the original film. And this I do think that some of the choices are going to make the next one really bad, but but for this one, I thought that Jay Bayona brought a flair, a horror flair to scenes that made it more fun. I think he's a much better director than Colin Trevorrow, and I thought that they developed Claire's character. She was more interesting to me than just some ice queen of business. So I think it was better. I think that they spent too much time in the middle with the dinosaurs in cages.
I could see that.
But overall, I was entertained enough. I liked it enough. And I went in with pretty low expectations, so that probably helped a little bit. But I'm glad to hear that you liked it since you had very high expectations. So that's good. That's very good.
Yep.
So what's your number one?
Oh, my number one's a pretty polarizing one. And I know you haven't seen this, and I would definitely say steer clear.
Okay, good.
Do not watch this.
Right.
But my number one movie is Hereditary.
Okay.
And it's same. I don't know if it's not the same director, but it's the same studio that did The Witch, which was also kind of polarizing with fans, but critics loved that as well.
Yeah.
But there is just so much to this movie. It's so intricate, and you don't even pick up on everything until you watch it a second time or you go home and read about it. I think it's horror at its best. It's got so much emotion to it. It's got such shocking moments. There's literally about a third of the way into the movie, something happens. It's so unexpected to me. And when it happens, I just grab my mouth and I just sat there like this for a good 3 minutes, just watching the aftermath of something that just happened. And the way that they flesh out everything, oh my gosh, it's so good. I've seen it twice already, and I want to see it a third time so badly. Top-notch acting. There's just kind of a mythology that's in this story that's based off of real things. It's worth researching. It's hard to talk to you about this since I know you don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Other than maybe trailers.
My friend who was the one who saw and loved Mandy, she was like, she says, I'm a heathen, and it was almost too much for me at certain points. She's like, don't see it. You won't like it.
Yeah. No, there's a lot going on.
Talk about the worst of the year. So I'm just going on mainstream for these worst of the year. I'm not, because I have two indies that I don't think even have been having a wide release at all, or even a semi large release. So that are my least favorite. But the worst movie that I've seen this year, well, no, I'll do my three. So my bottom three, it had pretty good reviews, but I was not a fan of Uncle Drew. I just didn't think it was funny at all. And I thought that the acting was very cringy, and I really didn't like Tiffany Haddish in it. I thought she was super kind of shrill, and I really didn't like the lead, Lil Ray Howery. I thought he was kind of annoying to me. He was sort of shrill.
He's couldn't get out.
I didn't love him in Get Out. He was the one part that just didn't quite fit into me. Like, it was too silly. It was too over the top.
Yeah.
His humor for me. And so obviously this is more of an outright comedy, but I don't know. I just didn't love him. And so that's a big problem. And when your best actor in your movie is Shaquille O'Neal, that's a problem for me. And I didn't like it. I'm shocked that it got like as many good reviews as it did.
Yeah.
I guess people like basketball more than I do. So that was my number 3.
This is my bottom 10.
Yeah. So my number 2 worst is Pacific Rim Uprising, which every character was irritating and annoying and shrill and horrible, and all the action you couldn't even like make out like really who was fighting who. It wasn't interesting. It didn't have anything to say. It was just like when I'm watching a movie and being like, Michael Bay would have made this better, then I know it's a terrible movie. And I liked the first one actually quite a bit, and I thought this was just terrible, and it made me depressed. The worst movie that I've seen.
That's also on my bottom 10. So
okay. The worst movie that I saw, and I saw it knowing it would be super bad, and it lived up to the reputation, is Gotti. Oh my gosh. It's kind of almost so bad it's good, but it's too boring to be a good, so bad it's good movie. But man, it's pretty much terrible in every way. And I think the thing that makes it especially horrid is that they try to make the mafia look like a persecuted minority group. Like everybody's out to get them. And there's even like a title card at the end that's like 20 investigators spent 10 years hounding the Gotti family and blah, 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 blah. And it's like supposed to be a bad thing that these investigators like which was hilarious. Like the narrative makes no sense. It's all over the place, like going in and out for like, it's really confusing, and people look the same ages no matter when it is. And the acting is really over the top, but not really in that entertaining of a way. And the costuming's terrible. The lighting is terrible. The dialogue feels like out of every cliche of a mob movie you could ever have. It is gratuitously violent, but not in, I don't think, in an entertaining way. It's just terrible, and everybody involved should be super embarrassed. Like, just ugh. So yeah, that's the worst movie I've seen all year for sure.
Okay, I never saw that one, so.
Yeah, you didn't miss out. I mean, I just had to. 0%. I'm like, I got to see this.
Mm-hmm. Although the audiences were pretty split on it, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. Yeah, but if you look at a lot of those reviews, they're like recently set up accounts. I heard that like, yeah, there's some sneakery going on there.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay, so my bottom 3, I was going to put The Clapper in there, but you're right. We should just focus on ones that are more mainstream. The Clapper wasn't even, I don't even think that went to theaters. So third for me would be Action Point. It's a Johnny Knoxville movie where he has this theme park, and I guess it's based on something. It's loosely based on a true story, but gosh, it was really bad. Like, it's all just these painful gags, and the stories like almost shoehorned in there. It's nothing good about it. It's not worth watching. It was putting me to sleep, and the only thing worth watching about it is seeing these people get hurt, which I don't even enjoy that.
Yeah, I don't like that kind of comedy at all, personally.
Yeah, it's not funny for me. So then second to last for me would be The Hurricane Heist. It's another movie that's just got a flimsy story. It's not even that much of a disaster movie. Like the hurricane is such a background element, which they could have made it more fun by just having like all this stuff going on with the hurricane, but they wasted it, and they just made a very boring film. But my least favorite movie of the year is one of the earliest movies I saw. It was in February. Is Proud Mary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you see that one?
No.
Oh gosh.
You warned me.
You're lucky. Yeah. it's just atrocious. I mean, everybody involved should be pretty embarrassed with that as well.
Keep it off your resume.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that they could take that story and make it so lifeless and boring and cliche, and gosh, it just didn't work on any level at all. So that was my worst of the year.
Yeah, it looked terrible. Okay, so real quick, we're going to talk about some favorite performances. I've already mentioned, actually, we've talked about most of mine, but so favorite male performance, my favorite in an indie is Charlie Plummer, Lean on Pete. We already talked about, amazing. And same. I agree. I remember you saying that he's going to be a big star, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and say he was my pick for like an indie movie as well. Like, and overall for males, like, it's so real. Is it like I explained to you how the dialogue, everything about it, he's just so convincing. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And then mainstream, this is more supporting performance. We're
going to agree again.
I have Hugh Grant in Paddington 2. He was so great, so funny, so willing to make fun of himself. Just a delight. So that's my top.
I think he really added. People seem to like Paddington 2 better than the original, and I really think it's him over Nicole Kidman, who I still enjoyed her in the first Paddington, but he really just pushed it over the edge. And his performance was great. I loved the what goes on during the credits.
Yeah. It's so good. It's hilarious when he's giving those like these dialogues to like the different the different mannequins or whatever. Oh, so funny.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So my favorite female performances, I have for indie, I have Thomasin McKenzie for Leave No Trace. She was just phenomenal, and she also, I could see her becoming a big star. I think hopefully they both have good agents, because I think they have so much potential. And I have for my favorite female performance, it's either a toss-up. I did think Charlize Theron was great in Tully, but I didn't love the movie. I had some issues with it, but she was so good. But so I do think the best female performance of the year is Emily Blunt in A Quiet Place. She's so good, and you feel for her. And that scene where she's giving birth and having to be quiet is insane. But she sells it, and she's great. So that's, I think, the best performance of the year.
Yeah, and so we match on 3 out of 4 here. I agree with Emily Blunt. She just really shows us what it's like to be a grieving mother, and then going through all of this trauma. Basically, she did such a great job. So for our indie actresses, that's our only disagreement, and it's only because we haven't seen each other's movies. But I have to go with Toni Collette in Hereditary. It's actually my favorite performance of the year so far. I think it's another movie that deals with grief. She loses her mother, and you just see so many like different. She runs the gamut with like her acting skills in this. I think it's by far the best role I've seen her in. It's just incredible. Like, she absolutely deserves to be nominated for an Oscar for her performance in this. I just really hope the Academy gives her a chance for this, because like, it's not a typical Oscar movie, but
hopefully kind of like I can't think of his name all of a sudden, but from Get Out, like they remembered that performance, but hopefully they will for that. And also I think Elsie Fisher in 8th Grade is phenomenal. That one's a really great one too.
I haven't seen yet, but she looks great in it. So.
Yeah, she's really, really great. And it's also been a super strong year for documentaries. I have 2 documentaries in my top 10. Won't You Be My Neighbor and 3 Identical Strangers were amazing. So
they're both in my top 20, I believe.
Yeah.
I think one is, and the other's in my top 30. Yeah.
So there we go. So it's been a pretty fun year. Let us know in the comment section what your favorites are and least favorites. And we'd love to talk about it. So that would be great. And so, David, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, the David Healy. That's my Twitter handle. You can also find me on Facebook. There's a film group that Rachel and I both are in, Film Freaks. Just go to facebook.com/Film Freaks Group.
Great. Yeah, and you can find me at Rachel's Reviews on iTunes and on YouTube, so check that out. And thanks again, and we will talk again soon.